since we wrote our first story in the Gazette, and I do encourage everybody to pick up their free copies here. There's 3 stories to date. We're going to keep writing this, and we're going to keep pushing this story out. Once again, Jesse mentioned it, Andy mentioned this. This is just the beginning. This is preseason. This rally is preseason. You're going to hear more about him. We're going to have him return. But really what it's all about is bringing justice to those courtrooms. If we don't have justice, if the very cornerstone of our democracy is to know that you have justice, and when you can't have that, or when you have to buy it, there's something terribly wrong. And I can tell you, since we wrote this story and when we've been inundated, there's not an hour that does not go by that I get a phone call from somewhere in this United States from somebody pleading, helping, can you help us? And all we could say is, we could just get your story out. We can't change anything. You could change it. You people out here can change it, and the only way it changes is bringing these groups together. You need to vote. You need to look at who you're voting for and the issue that you need to vote for. If you're not registered, I think we have registration cards. You need to get on this. But really, you have to start looking. We all have to start looking at what's the important stuff that we want. It's not. We don't want platitudes. What we want is legislators here in Pennsylvania to come forward, not just now, not next week, not 2 months from now, but before Election Day, and introduce legislation to put cameras in those courtrooms. That's what we need. We need cameras in those courtrooms. And don't listen to it, we have to protect the children. I think Judge Judy just came out here not too long ago and said the only reason we don't have cameras in the courtroom is to protect those that are hiding stuff. I've been following a few cases here. The last 5 I've showed up at, 4 of them I was asked to be removed from the courtroom, and the 5th one, it was all done behind chambers. And later on that day, the individual came out and said, Lou, you know what, they were going to have you physically removed, the lawyer. But without, you guys don't want to necessarily hear about what I have to say. A couple of the things, I want to bring up the Clarks. The Clarks are going, they just came in from Pennsylvania. Didn't know them up until a few months ago. Val Clark and her son. Come on up, Val. She's going to talk to you about gag orders. You ever hear of a gag order for life? That you're never allowed to talk at all about a case?
That's me.
That's her. Can't bring it up. Is this the America that we want? Is this the America that we're living in, that you cannot even speak up and freedom of speech? So why don't we give Val and her son? We're going to get you on this one. You guys can turn this one on? Okay. Go get him, Val.
I'm so glad to be here, and I came in with my son Michael. I have 4 children. I came from Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, and we live out by the Pittsburgh airport. I have 4 children. Michael's the oldest. He's 26, and I have a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old, and a 19-year-old. 2 boys, 2 girls. And in arriving here today, I noticed across the street, and no offense to Mulligan Sports and Spirits, but my judge, Mulligan, is inspiring me by seeing that sign there, because she spent the last 14 years taking away my right to free speech, taking away my attorney-client privilege, waiving my medical privacy rights. Every right that you believe that you have, that you hold sacred, I don't have, and I came to find out no one's going to enforce it, since I can't afford to enforce those rights, and they're not protected by any body in this state or country that I have been able to find. We have been through the atrocity of the last 14 years. So I'm just going to give you a little background. I do have this permanent gag order, which I am violating today and will continue to violate. Have not been arrested yet, and will continue to violate. This gag order started in 2004 when our case turned into a criminal case, and that happened because for 4 years prior to that, as we entered the family court system, we had a long documented history of abuse in our home, domestic violence, child abuse, and 8 therapists involved, marriage counselors, police reports, school district letters, you name it. When we arrived in the family court system in 2001 with a protection from abuse order, we had enough evidence to, and my ex-husband acknowledged much of the abuse that had happened in the record. We had no idea what we were in for. We went through 7 more years of 5 custody trials and then eventually a criminal case for allegations that had been made 5 years prior. And that started the gag order process because the judge sealed the case, gagged me only and my children, not the perpetrator, and left us in this position of not being able to speak to media while the family court and my ex-husband and the criminal lawyer all went on a media campaign, and we couldn't even respond to what was being said. As we went into the family court, we had no prior experience in a courtroom. I had never seen the inside of a courtroom, never seen a lawyer. This was in 2001. Long documented history of abuse, 8 therapists. As we got there, my kids reported everything. And I reported everything that ever happened, everything that was documented, and it was in the record. Unfortunately, I was not the wage earner, and my ex-husband had a lot of problems that he was dealing with. They took advantage of his problems, and he was a high wage earner as a physician and surgeon, and they decided this case wasn't going down to the criminal division, it was going to stay right in the family division where they were going to make another $1 million on a custody case for the next 6 years, running him around the block and running me and my 4 kids around the block for another 6 years with information that they already had. Well then, that involved an elaborate plan of mandated reporting that never happened. While they were prosecuting administrators at Penn State for mandated reporting violations, that they never even came into direct contact with children that reported. These kids reported to all the mandated reporters that were court ordered that we were forced to participate with, and they never reported it. And it's documented, they were never prosecuted, and there's just no explanation for it except making this huge amount of money or profit on custody. And that leads me to what brings us together and unites us here today. I've heard in Allegheny County and across this state every variation on this theme. At the end of the day, we are all united by the profit-making system that's in place, and it's taking advantage of fathers, of mothers, of children, of grandparents. I've heard of grandparents' entire retirement fund being pilfered by the court. We're in foreclosure, we're on welfare, your tax dollars are supporting somebody's kids who never got their child support, who never got a divorce settlement that was used to coerce a criminal plea. And it's a huge miscarriage of justice that we're all facing. And every time there's a gag order entered, that's to prevent me from telling this story. And the last one that was entered was actually August of last year, and it was carried over because the family court judge who presided over our family case coerced the criminal plea in the criminal case is now presiding over a civil case for damages for my 4 kids who are now adults. And they had sued their dad for the medical damages that they never got reimbursed for. And she came over to that division, was assigned, and is now gagging us with the same gag order on that case. And so with that introduction, I'll let Michael speak about his experience as an adult and entering the system as a child at the age of 14.
My name's Mike, and I've been awake for the past 24 hours. We're working really hard on something, and I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm pretty much just winging this today. I've talked about this before, so I'm just going to talk about it off the top of my head. When I first came into the case, I was just 14 years of age. I really didn't know what was going on at the end of the first thing, and the first person I told was Dr. King. He was the custody evaluator for the family division case, and this was basically a tell-all for him to evaluate who should get custody, what should be done. And I went to him, and my brother and my 2 sisters went to him as well, and we all took turns, and we just told him everything we remembered, everything we could think of that has happened to us. And when I went to talk to him, I talked about sexual abuse. After that, he told my mother, and I heard from her that I had told him. She was in shock. She had no idea. And after that, nothing was done. The next person I told was Dr. Fisher. He was the reunification therapist. And I didn't trust him right off the bat because he was the reunification therapist. I decided not to visit with my father right off the bat. I am lucky, and he was lucky, that I was old enough to abstain. Otherwise, I would not let him get away with it. If I was forced to visit with him, I was not letting him get away with it. And I told Dr. Fisher everything I knew with my younger sister, and he didn't say anything to any police whatsoever. And he even argued with me and Jen, my sister, about the abuse. He argued with us and said that it isn't real, that it isn't true. And not only that, my sister at one point, he called him my father's whore. And he said he wasn't my father's whore, but apparently he was, because he didn't tell the police after that. The next person I told was Dr. King a second time. Now I thought this was strange. I had to tell him again. And it pretty much happened like the first time, except this time he told us all that he was sorry that we had such a scumbag for a father, and he said he was going to fix this. Still, nothing was done. After that, next thing I know, the judge orders unsupervised visit for my brother and my sister. So then we had to deal with that. My brother was running away. We were meeting to pick him up. My sister was trying to get out of the visitations. They did not want to visit alone. And then eventually the cops found out that way, through an investigation, that there was sexual abuse. And then that's how the case got charged. And then after that, we told the judge about it. We all went in and we told the judge about it, and then she still kept unsupervised visitation in place. She kept it going on through the criminal case. After the charges were done, she kept the unsupervised visitation. My brother, the witness, the victim, was being forced to visit with his attacker through the criminal case that was pending. And then after that, the unsupervised visitation never stopped. He was even criminally convicted, and it still never stopped. The only time it stopped is when the divorce case was over. He got to keep all the money. The criminal case was over. He pretty much got just a year probation. Probably paid off the probation officer as well to just get away with that, just walk. And then he just never wanted to see my brother or sister again. Not even a phone call, not even a letter, nothing. And then that's what happened. And it was hard enough telling so many people so many times about this stuff. I really don't like to talk about it. It was so hard to talk about it, and then nothing was done for years. And that's all I really have to say about that today. Thank you very much.
We came all this way today. We just have one last thing to say, because we don't want to turn our backs on every child, parent, grandparent who's going to walk through those doors behind us and go through the same nightmare for the next 14 years. We must come together as one and realize that all types of atrocities of every kind are happening to mothers, fathers, children, grandparents, even professionals like Jim Singer, who did the right thing and reported as a mandated reporter and was chastised and had his license revoked. We must step up united to restore civil rights and to restore oversight to the family court as a united group. Thank you.
Thanks, Val. Thanks for making this trip. And we know, I can tell you right now, numerous cases in Allegheny County. It seems as though there's certain areas in the state that it seems like it's really prevalent. Certainly Lackawanna, Luzerne, Allegheny, Berks. It just seems as though that we get an awful lot of calls from certain areas, which obviously puts up those red flags.